Hey everybody, thanks for joining me for our Friday Skype for Business broadcast. So we do these every 2 weeks. Thanks for coming out. Really appreciate you having you here. As you'll notice, we have a slightly different configuration this time around because one of the things that we like to do in these broadcasts is romance the beauty of Skype meeting broadcast, and it's the feature that we're using here. We're just having a Skype meeting. We send everything up to Azure. Azure distributes it out to the world, including you right now. Whether you're watching this live or slightly delayed or archived. So anyway, one of the cool things about doing this is that this is just another Skype meeting. And so what's great about Skype meetings, we get to bring in people from far, far away. The person who's joining us isn't from a long ways away. I guess I should probably introduce myself to start off with. My name is Jamie Stark. I look after voice interoperability and networking for Skype for Business, and I am so excited to have with me here today for our Skype meeting broadcast, Mr. Francois Dormieu from our Skype for Business engineering organization. Francois, where are you right now, and how are you doing?
Hello, Jamie, live from Denver. How are you doing? Go Broncos.
Wow, I see you have recovered from celebrating then.
That was tough. Somebody's got to do it, though.
Excellent. Oh, very good. So, Francois, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, and Jamie, we've been working together for a long time. I'm part of the Skype for Business engineering team in a team called Customer Lifecycle Engineering. And I work with some of our strategic customers. That includes, in particular, some financial services customers. And they're the ones who've given us a lot of feedback on the space that we're going to discuss today that really started this discussion.
Absolutely. So, for those of you that aren't aware, today we're going to be talking about VDI, or virtual device infrastructure. So you may not be familiar with VDI, or this may be something that you are super deep in and want to know some more about the feature and how it works. Actually, that's a funny thing. Francois and I have been working together for a very long time. In fact, prior to Francois's current role in the engineering organization, he held the role of Voice Product Marketing Manager at Microsoft, which is the seat that I currently hold. So yes, indeed, Francois and I have been working together for quite a long time as he's moved into engineering, and I've taken over and tried to fill his large shoes when it comes to the marketing side of things. But this is just one of those things that we've been working on for quite a long time. VDI is a particularly kind of interesting technology, and it has some unique kind of difficulties. And so, I guess maybe we should start off, Francois. You tell us, why we're going to spend the next 20 minutes, 30 minutes talking about VDI. Why is this stuff hard? What's kind of interesting about it?
Certainly, Jamie. The main aspect of VDI is that the client doesn't run where the user is. The client runs on the data center, on a server in the data center. And the client does a lot of processing, audio, video, those kind of things. And if that occurs on the server, there's a number of things that are detrimental eventually to the experience. Clearly, the server has more work to do, doesn't scale as well. We've seen customers having very, very low density of their Skype for Business deployments, the desktops only being able to support, a few dozens of users on servers, which clearly the economics are completely off at that point. But also the media will go back and forth, the media being processed on the server and the audio device, of course, being where the user sits. The media is going to be processed and go through the network back and forth, which, of course, you're going to need more network. The media is going to be impacted by that AirPinning. And there's a number of things like this. Another one is, if you were to call emergency services and your media stack and your client runs in the data center, well, the police and the firemen might show up at the data center, not where you sit. Those are the kind of things to take into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly not optimal, right, for folks to kind of get into that situation. So, we've been doing VDI with Skype for Business, and then prior to that Link, and then prior to that Communicator at a few different levels, and there's been a variety of different kind of ways for us West to do this and to try to prosecute the space. And there was a set of announcements that happened just very recently between us and our partner Citrix, and that really kind of promulgated the us doing this broadcast now, and was a culmination of a lot of work. So what was kind of the key announcement that Citrix made just in the last couple months?
Absolutely. Earlier, actually in mid-January or so, Brad Anderson, our corporate vice president who actually works a lot with Citrix as part of Office 365, and I were at Citrix Summit in Las Vegas. And we jointly announced on stage with Citrix a new Citrix product, which results from a very deep partnership for the past year, 12 months or so. The genesis for that, by the way, is the feedback from FinServ customers, I mentioned, and other customers, but in particular FinServ customers. That's a technology that's broadly used in FinServ, and they essentially told us the current solutions you both have, Citrix and Microsoft, while they're functional, they don't fully meet our needs. There are things we'd like for you to do better, things that could go further. And we took that to heart. We got together, huddled. We decided to approach this a little bit differently from a normal partner situation where things are defined, there's documentation, and then partners go build something. In this case, what we did is we got the developers together and decided, and discussed what's the best way. If we were to do this, what's the best way? And for the past 12 months, the developers have been working together, deciding on the protocols, on the APIs, those type of things, which makes it much, much tighter. So the solution, Citrix HDX Real-Time Optimization Pack version 2.0, that's long, it's a Citrix product, but it's really the result of engineering from both companies and collaboration from both companies on it. It's even though it takes the same name as the previous Citrix solution, it's a completely different story, completely different topology, and so on. We'll talk a little bit about that. And we believe that because of the close relationship that we've had when we devised that, it's actually leapfrogging from a performance and capability point of view, everything that we've both done before. So there's a lot of advantages to that, and hopefully we'll have a little bit of time to discuss them.
Yeah, absolutely, Francois. I think we'll definitely going to have some time to discuss these. It seems like there's just like a very kind of renewed sort of sense of work and purpose between Citrix and Microsoft on this. I see here, the joint goals that we had between the two companies. Like these are pretty audacious, right? If you think about VDI, and if you think about just some of the fundamental challenges that you were talking about earlier of being able to both accurately represent media, be able to optimize for latency, and yet doing all of this work in a way that the client is disaggregated in a way that's kind of very different from its design. It's just very impressive.
Yes, we're quite satisfied and proud of what we've been able to accomplish jointly here. We really strongly believe this is second to none in the business, and we're hearing great feedback from early adopters of the technology. We had technical previews. We have already quite a few deployments, not just in FinServ. Actually, we've been very interested in looking at the fact that a lot of customers we were not always aware of having that need came back and validated the solution and are very happy with it. So some of the things we're really trying to do here is to make it such that the end user has almost no awareness that this is not a real client running on their device in front of them, that it's actually that the client's running remotely. And that has required quite a bit of engineering. We didn't have that before. We really didn't have feature completeness. We didn't have the exact native user experience. We really were not quite as complete as that. The other great benefit we have, and this is something that really uniquely derives from the Citrix relationship, is the fact that we're able to coverage a huge range of devices and operating systems. Microsoft did have a solution, and actually still has a solution that we use in Link 2013, and it's still there. We might call it VDI V1 if you want, but that solution was only for Windows. And by having this partnership with Citrix, now we are able to cover a huge range of devices, thin devices that include, of course, a full range of Windows, a very, very broad range of Linux, but also things such as Mac, or even through a partnership that Citrix has with Wisdell, something called ThinOS. Why is ThinOS? So very, very unique type of capabilities, extreme range and great coverage there.
That's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. So I just got an instant message here from Paul and from Sean, who are off in the back and who are helping to manage the different parts of our broadcast. Paul wanted to make sure that I said to everybody, please be sure to check out the Bing Pulse. The Bing Pulse is in your browser window right now. It's off to the right-hand side, and we have some questions that are coming through the Bing Pulse. We also want to hear what you think about the content, about what we're talking about. And of course, if you have any questions, we have the Q&A manager operating. Feel free to throw in any questions there. And as Francois and I have time towards the end of the session, we'll definitely take a couple moments to take some questions from the audience. So awesome. Thank you so much. So just moving on here a little bit. So you kind of talked about how this is based in the HDX 2.0 product line. Let's talk a little bit more about some of the key aspects of this of the solution and of what Citrix and Microsoft jointly are bringing to market.
Certainly. So one of the things that really differentiates it from any solution we had before is a completely new architecture. And all the past architecture, whether from Microsoft, Citrix, had essentially consisted in having a client running at the bottom, in the local device, and that client had to stay in sync with the other client. So you actually had two clients to represent the user. You needed to sign in twice, you needed to implement the features twice, you needed to have SIP signaling and all those kind of things implemented twice. It was very, very complex. The new architecture we have actually is much simpler. And because it's simpler, it's going to be more reliable, it's going to be easier to implement features and capabilities. So that's something that's really, it starts with that new architecture. One way to picture it or to think of it is that it's as if Microsoft had decided or had separated the communication within our own client between our what we call the media manager, what talks to the media stack, and that media stack, and said, instead of talking to the Microsoft media stack that's within the client, let's talk to that other media stack that happens to be remote on the device. And we use the same protocol essentially channelized there to talk to that remote media stack. Very, very elegant solution. Doesn't require authentication on a thin device, which means that it's going to be much easier, for example, to have remote user scenarios using that solution. Very, very elegant approach. One of the things that makes this possible is those unique Citrix assets that I mentioned before. The fact that they did have, from the days of the HDX Real-Time Media Engine, even version 1, that media stack across a range of platforms. Great news, it's already available. So we silently shipped the capabilities from a Microsoft point of view as part of the client update, Skype for Business 2015 client update in the December 2015 PU. And that's in there. It doesn't show up until you actually deploy the HDX Real-Time Optimization Pack. But if you do it now, and that's now available since December 29th, released to web at that time, you actually will see that capability light up. There's two components to the HDX Real-Time Optimization Pack. There's a component which is just a media stack that resides on the local device and on the thin device. That's much, much smaller than what we had before. The Microsoft V1 plugin was about 800 megs. This one's probably about 120, so much easier to deploy, simpler, and so on. And then there is a small component that resides on the server side, so on the desktop, if you will, where the Microsoft client is, and it puts some reg keys in place, just minor things, and channelizes the communication. So very, very simple deployment. We of course have transition paths from V1 to V2, so you can actually make sure you coexist the plugins on the device as you transition one from the other. There's going to be some elements of backwards compatibility. So well thought out process here.
I think it's just remarkable. This has to be the first time in the history of in the short history, granted, of our video broadcast, that we're actually talking about a brand new solution that is already available. We spend a lot of time talking about, hey, this thing is it's coming and it's on the roadmap. We're excited about it, and it'll be, a month or 2 or 3, or there's a preview program that's starting. And here, the first time we're talking about VDI, poof, you can get it, you can use it, and you can take advantage of it. So Citrix customers absolutely can jump right in here, both with the update that we shipped in December on the 2015 client, and then the update that Citrix delivered as well. When you started talking through the architecture, it is really compelling to think about. Where we of course, folks that are used to using Skype for Business, like they're just or Link and Communicator in the past, they're familiar with the model of the client. And yet, if you dive into doing any, kind of deep debugging, or if you've looked at logs in the past, you'll notice how there are several different layers of software within the client. And I think it's a little bit easier to see on the server side. There's multiple exes that manage, the focus, or that manage the MCU or the mediation or whatever. But even in the client, that there are several layers of software that are engaged here, and it's kind of the way that Citrix and Microsoft planned and integrated together, very deeply within the actual, kind of core of the product to make this function. So this slide kind of starts to dive into that a little bit, and actually starts to show what some of the parts are from Microsoft and what some of the parts are from Citrix. So kind of talk us through that, because I think this is a super interesting part for folks that are kind of interested in the bits and bytes.
Absolutely, a little bit of technology here. Let's deep dive a little bit. Compared to, so what you have on the left side, on top of the left side drawing is what resides in data center. At the bottom is what is with the user, so that thin device. And so the assets you have are, of course, you have the Skype for Business server farm, and then you have the Citrix server farm. Could be XenApp, could be Xen Desktop, which, by the way, this is the first time we're going to support XenApp as well. Yeah, so it's kind of incremental support scope. We've only supported Xen Desktop so far. So on those servers, Citrix servers is where your Skype Business client runs, and where that small HDX connector I described earlier is going to be added, so that it can talk to the real-time media engine that's on the device, on the customer's device. The most striking piece on that chart for me, and may not be to everybody, but it's that what we don't have anymore. We don't have that diagonal connection between the Citrix receiver, or between the HDX real-time optimization pack and the Skype for Business server. In all of the previous versions, we had a diagonal arrow here that had to do authentication, had to do SIP signaling, had to do a number of other things there, features and so on. By removing that diagonal and only having communication between the real-time media engine and the HDX connector, it's a much simpler architecture, as I was mentioning earlier. Makes it smaller, makes it such that all the features are delivered actually by the Skype for Business client itself, not by the plugin. And it's something that is eminently more reliable and more feature complete from the start. When we say feature complete, there's a couple of features that we've not been able to get to quite yet, and actually in Q&A we do have a few questions for you, if you don't mind giving us some indication as to what prioritization we should give to some of those. But it's much more feature complete from the start than any of the pre-existing versions. For example, we did not have in the pre-existing versions, version 1, support for RGS or boss admin or those type of scenarios. We have that out of the box now. So much simpler, much better.
Yeah, and those are just absolutely key features. And I remember, I remember back in the days when people were first asking us about VDI and about doing, either doing just Xen Desktop and having to have some speed of light conversations and having to explain about how that's functionally like just not a really good idea for you to do. And if you do, you're just going to have a really bad media experience. And now we're, fast forward a few years, and now we're talking about this kind of incredibly robust set of capabilities. Even though we know that there are still some features that we can still get done here. definitely make sure we've got a question out right now in the Bing Pulse around prioritization. Please give us that feedback. Francois, I hear from Paul that 43% of the folks that are currently listening to us right now live actively have today or are actively planning for a VDI solution. Which
that's surprising to me. That's mind-boggling. Yeah.
I know. So, we didn't do any special marketing on this, right? Like we didn't go out to a Citrix user group and say like, hey, come in here, let's talk about Skype for Business or anything like that. So no, that was the response I had to do with Paul. It's like, wow, really? This is really surprising. So clearly there's lots of interest in more information about how to drive the solution and how to understand more. And so one of the things that I think is just it's kind of interesting about it, though, historically we've always done kind of very rich demonstrations of new technology that we're really excited about, and I see we have a screenshot here. So how come we're not doing a live demo? Like, how come we're not really playing with this stuff here?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons. One of them is practical, but the real reason here is this is the most boring demo in the world because there's nothing to look at. That by design, what you actually want is to have exactly the same user experience as a normal client. So what is there to see? It's like, okay, I see a client, I see video, it's working. Yeah, thank you. So what you have here is a screenshot of that. The interesting part here is not the video on the left. It's the fact that the CPU, as you can tell, on the server side. So this is the CPU from the server side, on your VDI desktop, is actually super low, even though this is processing video. And at this point, that specific video is actually not hardware accelerated. That's something we're working on. So you could tell that if this was run in software on the server, we would have a much higher CPU level. So it's just a proof in the pudding that the video is not being processed on the virtual desktop. But that's pretty much all there is to it.
Excellent. So I got some up to the minute stats here from Paul around what some of the features folks are interested in. Initially it was the better together experience of the phones and QoE. Now QoE is starting to pull ahead a little bit for the better together experience. H.264 hardware acceleration is another one that folks are really interested in. But yeah, it's remarkable here to really see this is the demonstration of exactly what's happening in this client architecture where the heavy lifting of processing of video is happening locally and is being overlaid on top of the client, and the client experience is coming in from the server. And so it's just really cool to see this actually happen. But I agree with you. Yeah, it's kind of a boring demo. It's not one that you can really kind of get a lot of sauce out of. So boy, there's a lot of parts to think through here. There's a lot of different components. There's components from Microsoft, and there's components from Citrix. So we've got a kind of a table here around supportability. So help us kind of walk through this in some of these different areas.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing and the most striking to me, and maybe to folks who've seen this before, is how broad this table is. We used to have a very, very narrow support statement from Microsoft. The device had to be Windows. It was only Xen Desktop, and we only supported the server, Link Server 2013, and that was it. Now we have a much broader statement of support. I'll start with the Citrix side. From a Citrix point of view, the good news is they're not going to require that you upgrade. It works with the current supported versions of Xen Desktop and Xen App. There's in market still a few, no longer supported versions that may not be sufficient, but the vast majority of customers today are on those versions that are listed here, which it's it's pretty nice that we don't request or require customers to upgrade their XenApp or XenDesktop farm to deploy this. And by the way, if they have the Enterprise or Platinum CAL from Citrix, that's good enough. They don't need to pay anything incremental to Citrix for this either.
So all the new kind of capabilities here really are from the plugin, really are from the HDX optimization pack piece.
That is correct.
Not from the data center side. Wow. Okay. God,
we can use the ICA channel obviously, but from a VDA point of view, from a Citrix server farm point of view, there is no need to change that in the extreme majority of cases, which is a big difference, a big impact. I'll talk about what's at the bottom as well. From a Microsoft point of view, we've also taken pretty much the same approach, which is and actually to some extent surprisingly, because we didn't expect that at the beginning when we started the project, we're able to support that on Link Server 2013 as well. So, of course, we would like for you to be under the CU, as well as Skype for Business Server 2015. But also for the first time, we are able to extend support to Office 365, which is, of course, super important, super strategic to us. I can see you're happy about it.
No, I mean, I clearly this is. I vividly remember when we talked about VDI in the past and having spirited conversations with partners and customers and our field alike, and folks just go, I just don't understand, why can't this operate on Office 365 and not having the right piece parts in place, not having the right testing effort in place. And so this is one of those cases where I think from an expectations perspective, we've over delivered and Citrix as well. Wouldn't say we, the broader we have delivered against this and over delivered in so many cases in the architecture and the kind of supportability framework and the fact that it's available in both the current release of our clients and the current release of the of XenApp and XenDesktop. That was the other piece too you've commented on. This, I don't know how much folks, if you haven't been steeped in VDI, understand what a big deal it is. But with XenDesktop, you're virtualizing the entire desktop. With XenApp, you have the ability to virtualize just the application. And we've seen customers move into using XenApp more and more and just wanting to virtualize just the Skype for Business application, and as opposed to virtualizing the whole desktop. And so to be able to have all this flexibility and on the same platforms is just kind of very remarkable. And then again, too, to be able to see this actually operating on Linux, that is another place that I think is again very, very remarkable to see Linux client.
That was a big ask of our customers, obviously, to be cross-platforms, and we were challenged before. And the type of capabilities that we have here coming from Citrix, because that is really a Citrix capability that relies on their assets around a variety of devices. The ability to optimize that for different form factor of devices, different performance of devices, and so on, which is a very, very significant amount of capabilities they have. That's something we probably don't have nearly as much depth as they do. What type of hardware is required to run this on Linux and so on. Those type of versions for different vendors. That's something we benefit from through that partnership out of the box. And really, the coup is also adding the WiseThin OS, being able to support WiseThin OS, which is kind of a proprietary closed platform. Popular, has been deployed in FinServ and elsewhere quite a bit. That's something we absolutely never were able to get to before. We now have that as well. There's pretty big customers in FinServ that use it and that we were blocked with, frankly. So it's we have the broadest range right now, bar none.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Weiss, for those of you who don't know, is the hardware and the client, has an embedded set of operating system firmware. And to have that, also be able to run the plugin and everything else is really interesting. So one question we did get from online was, what about Skype for Business Basic? And this actually ends up being a little bit more of a licensing question, because Skype for Business Basic is actually not licensed for use with VDI. And just from kind of the marketing perspective, clearly there's a tremendous amount of business value with doing VDI and with the capabilities that you get from the VDI platform. And so, that needs to be reflected in the client as well, right? And so that's always been one of the things we've had about Basic, is that the Basic client is not designed around that kind of form factor or that use case. And so thus you need to have the full Skype for Business client in order to have this operating.
Yes, and this is actually not just from the point of view of the audio aspects, but the support for Basic, or the non-license for Basic, is even if you were to just do IM and presence. There is no right to use Basic in any VDI situation, regardless of what scenarios we're talking about.
Oh, very good, very good. I just got an IM from Paul. Apparently, the Q&A is fast and furious. He says he's going nuts answering questions. So thank you for bringing those in. I don't know if Paul is going to thank me when we're done with this, but it's great to hear that folks are so interested. I think we're kind of getting close to time. There are a couple more things that we want to talk about. Clearly, with the kind of confluence of different technologies that are at play here, it really makes sense for us to address what the support model looks like. Obviously, Microsoft and Citrix, we've been partners for a while. We continue to be very strong partners, both inside and outside of this particular effort. But let's kind of talk through a little bit. What does the support process look like for enterprise customers, and what should their expectations of support should be?
Certainly, and this is a departure from where we stood with them with respect to the previous version 1 of the HDX real-time optimization pack. When we had the version 1 of the HDX real-time optimization pack, we actually didn't have a statement of support from Microsoft, and many of our customers were struggling or frustrated with that situation, and that was not a very easy situation to handle for either vendors. Microsoft and Citrix have a history of jointly supporting solutions in the virtualization technology. So we already have tier 3 relationships between our support teams. We already have the ability to pass tickets back and forth. We already have people who know each other. We're extending this relationship between our support organizations to cover this solution. This is a joint support statement. This is a joint support scope. What I showed you, what we looked at earlier on the previous slide of the supported infrastructure and so on, that's the same statement from Citrix and Microsoft. The features we support, the situation in which we support it, all of this is shared. And so this gives us an opportunity, a platform to actually look at user situations jointly. What we are suggesting is that customers open a ticket with the vendor that they suspect is likely to be at the root cause of the problem, but then we'll pass it on as appropriate, and we'll use that developer-to-developer relationship, support-to-support and developer-to-developer relationship, and we're already doing that today, by the way, because it's already deployed at quite a few customers, and we've had a few bugs coming up already, as you would expect, always part of the software life. So we take the software ticket, do support, and work them jointly.
That's great. Excellent. No, really, really good to hear. I mean, clearly there's been a ton of thought that's been put into this, kind of end to end. And so last piece that I think we want to leave folks with is how to find out more. And so there's there you see it in 50-foot high flaming letters on the broadcast. More. This is actually, I think, from a marketing perspective, it's really great. How do I find out more? We'll go to more.citrix.com/Skype. So good kudos to the Citrix marketing organization for that one. I think that's it's fantastic. So hey, boy, I think there's been a fantastic amount of questions, a lot of interaction. Folks on the broadcast, please don't hesitate to fill out the surveys on the Bing Pulse as we wrap up here, and I have the opportunity to say thank you, Francois. I know it's been a very busy week for you, both with some customer engagements and this work on the VDI side. Thank you so much for taking the time this week to help put this together and for joining us. This has been an absolute delight. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure. I want to invite customers, if they have questions or follow-up or want to actually provide input into roadmaps, to please contact us, probably through their account teams, but we would love to hear more from you and to get more guidance on roadmap in particular. And to hear about success stories and deployments, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely right. So, you know what? Actually, what we'll do, we'll take these slides. We'll put these up on the Yammer group of the Office 365 IT Pro Forum. Of course, we're going to have this archived up on YouTube as well. And yeah, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, whether it's through Yammer, whether it's through Twitter, or any of the other variety of platforms that we're using to connect. And so with that, I'm Jamie Stark. Thanks again for joining us. Have an awesome day and have an awesome weekend. Thanks, everybody.